They always told me that family comes first. So I believed them. I worked late, paid every bill, gave up vacations, hobbies, even sleep, just to keep a roof over their heads and my little sister in college. I never asked for thanks. I just thought if I kept giving, maybe one day, they'd finally see my worth. But that day never came. Instead, they sold my car, the only thing I owned, so my sister could throw a picnic. And when I stood up for myself, they told me to leave. That was the day I stopped paying. That was the day I walked out. And what happened after, they never saw it coming. My name is Emma, and I'm 31 years old. I've always been the one who took care of everything at home. Ever since my dad left us years ago, I felt responsible for my mom and my younger sister, Chloe. She's 21 now, going to college, and still acts like a spoiled teenager. I've been paying all the bills, rent, electricity, groceries, and even Chloe's college fees. I never complained. I just wanted them to be okay. Last year, I finally bought myself a small used car. It wasn't anything fancy, but I was proud of it. I paid for it with my own savings, and for once, I felt like I had something of my own. I needed that car for work, for errands, and honestly, it was one of the only things in my life that gave me some independence. Then one weekend, everything changed. Chloe had been planning a beach picnic with her college friends. She wanted to rent a private van, hire a photographer, buy matching outfits, and even order a custom cake. When she came to me asking for money, I gently told her no. I said, "I'm sorry, Chloe, but I've already paid your tuition and this month's bills. I can't afford a party too." She didn't take it well. She threw a tantrum in the kitchen and called me selfish. My mom didn't say much that day. She just stood there, silent. I thought that was the end of it. But I was wrong. A few days later, when I got home from work, I noticed something strange. The driveway was empty. My car was gone. At first, I thought it had been towed or stolen. I ran inside, panicking. That's when I saw Chloe on the couch, laughing and scrolling through her phone.
And my mom?
She was in the kitchen, acting like everything was normal. I asked, "Where's my car?" My mom didn't even look at me. She just said, "We sold it." Chloe needed money for her big day. "You don't need a car right now anyway." I stood there in shock. "You what? That car was mine. I paid for it." Chloe looked up and smirked. "You're always acting like a saint. You should be happy I'm having fun for once." I was speechless. My chest felt heavy. I had worked for years, sacrificing everything to make sure they had what they needed. And this was how they repaid me? When I told my mom I couldn't believe what they had done, she snapped and said something I'll never forget. "If you have such a problem, Emma, then maybe you shouldn't live here anymore." That's when I realized I didn't belong in that house anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, completely numb. My mother had sold my car, without even asking. My sister laughed in my face like it was a joke. And now they were telling me to leave? After everything I had done for them? I walked quietly to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence in that moment said more than words ever could. I thought about all the nights I stayed up late, working overtime just to keep the lights on. I thought about how I gave up new clothes, vacations, even simple joys like eating out or buying coffee, so Chloe could attend college stress-free. I looked around the room. My safe space. And I realized it never really was mine. That night, I packed my clothes into 2 suitcases. No noise. No drama. Just me, moving quietly like a guest sneaking out of a stranger's home. I left behind the furniture, kitchen appliances I had bought, and even the old laptop I'd given Chloe last year. Before I left, I wrote a short note and taped it to the fridge. It read, "I'm done. I won't pay another bill. I won't cover Chloe's college. And I won't live where I'm not wanted. Take care." Then I walked out of the house I had helped hold together for years, and I didn't look back. I moved into a small studio apartment across town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The walls were plain. The fridge was nearly empty. And I had no car. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Peace.
The next few days were quiet. No calls. No texts. Nothing from Mom or Chloe. Maybe they thought I was bluffing. Maybe they didn't care. But then the calls started coming. Chloe was the first. She left a voicemail, her voice shaking. Emma, the college just emailed me. My classes are canceled. You didn't pay the semester fee. What's going on? Then my mother called. Emma, the power's out. The bills are overdue. Are you trying to punish us? You need to come fix this, now. I didn't answer either of them. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't their backup plan. 3 weeks passed. I stayed quiet. I didn't call. I didn't message. I didn't send a single cent. And just as I expected, things at my old house started to fall apart. A mutual neighbor told me the lights had been shut off. No electricity. No internet. No hot water. The rent hadn't been paid either. My mom tried to blame the landlord, but the truth was simple. I had been the one keeping that house afloat all along. Chloe's fancy beach picnic? It happened. But it wasn't the dream she imagined. A few photos were posted online, but the comments were brutal. People laughed at her cheap decorations and how she pretended to be rich. Then, just days later, her world came crashing down. Her college officially dropped her for unpaid tuition. She tried to cry and argue at the front desk, but they showed her the notice and the outstanding balance I used to quietly cover every semester. She tried calling me again. I let it ring. Then I blocked her. My mom showed up at my apartment once. I didn't open the door. I watched through the peephole as she stood outside, yelling, "You're my daughter, Emma. You owe us this. You can't just leave." But I could. And I did. Meanwhile, I was quietly building something for myself. I had started a YouTube channel, not for fame, but as a side project to share what I had learned. I called it Finance for the Forgotten. It was a space for people like me, those who had spent their lives giving, sacrificing, and getting nothing in return. I talked about setting boundaries, managing money, and escaping guilt-driven family pressure. I kept the stories anonymous. No names. Just real feelings. And people connected with it instantly. One video titled "They Sold My Car for Party" took off after an influencer reposted it. Within a week, I had thousands of new subscribers and inboxes filled with messages from people who had lived through the same pain. Then something unexpected happened. One of Chloe's classmates saw the video and recognized her from the story. The comments section exploded. "Is this about Chloe M?" She bragged about that picnic. Her sister paid for her life, and she still treated her like trash. This explains why she got kicked out of school. Chloe's secret was out. She had spent years curating the perfect image online, but now everyone saw the truth. As her reputation shattered, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Free.
By the end of that month, I was fully settled into my new life. My YouTube channel was growing faster than I ever imagined. I wasn't making millions, but the ad revenue and small sponsorships were enough to pay rent, buy groceries, and build savings. More importantly, I had full control over my time and peace inside my mind. Then, out of nowhere, I received a letter in the mail. It was from a law office. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. But when I opened it, my heart sank. My mother had filed an official claim requesting monthly financial support, accusing me of abandonment and demanding money. She wanted to take me to court. I couldn't believe what I was reading. After selling my car, kicking me out, and letting Chloe mock me, she wanted more. She claimed I had abandoned the family and left them in emotional and financial distress. She said I owed them for all the years I lived under her roof. For a brief moment, I felt the old guilt trying to creep in. But then I remembered. I had proof. I had saved everything. 5 years' worth of bills, rent receipts, utility payments, Chloe's tuition invoices, and even the car's registration in my name. And best of all, I had an audio recording on my phone from the day they sold my car. My mom's voice, loud and clear. "We sold it. Chloe needed money. You don't need a car anyway." I took everything to a lawyer. After reviewing my file, he leaned back, smiled, and said, "Emma, you don't need to worry. In fact, we can countersue. That's theft." So that's exactly what we did. 2 weeks later, my mother and Chloe were both served with legal papers. They thought I'd cave. They thought I'd feel shame. But I wasn't that girl anymore. When the court date finally arrived, they were in for a surprise they never saw coming. The courtroom was small but heavy with tension. I sat next to my lawyer, dressed in simple, clean clothes, holding a folder packed with receipts, bank statements, and the signed car ownership documents. Across from me sat my mother, tight-lipped, avoiding my eyes. Chloe scrolled on her phone like she didn't care, but her shaking hands told another story. When the judge entered, the room went silent. The hearing began with my mother's attorney accusing me of abandoning my family obligations. They claimed I had lived under my mother's roof my whole life, then left without warning and caused financial collapse. I stayed quiet. I let them speak. Then it was our turn. My lawyer stood and said calmly, "Your Honor, my client was the sole provider for that household for over 5 years. She paid for rent, utilities, groceries, and even her sister's full college tuition, none of which she was legally obligated to do." He continued, "And we have undeniable proof that her personal vehicle, registered in her name, was sold without her consent." He handed over a USB drive. Everyone listened as my mother's voice filled the room. "We sold it. Chloe needed money. You don't need a car anyway." The judge raised his eyebrows. "You sold your daughter's property without her permission?" Her lawyer tried to deflect, but it was already too late. Next, my lawyer presented a detailed breakdown of my payments. Over $46,000 in covered expenses, including Chloe's education. Then came the final blow. Screenshots from Chloe's social media showing photos of the luxury picnic and captions like, "All paid for" and "My perfect beach day." The courtroom went dead silent. The judge leaned back, exhaled, and finally said, "Miss Emma, not only are you not required to pay anything further, you are entitled to financial compensation for the unauthorized sale of your vehicle. This case is dismissed. Furthermore, I am referring the matter of the car sale to the local district for a possible theft investigation." My mom's face turned ghost white. Chloe looked like she was about to cry. But I didn't smile. I just stood up, thanked the judge, and walked out with my head held high. I had come to court alone, but I walked out free, and for the first time in my life, truly whole. The judge had spoken clearly. I didn't owe my family anything. In fact, I had the right to demand repayment, and they had no legal ground to stand on. My mother was given a legal warning and a strict deadline: repay me the full value of the car she sold without my consent, or face criminal charges. She didn't have enough savings, so she ended up selling a few of her gold bangles and borrowing money from distant relatives to pay me back. The same relatives who once praised her now looked at her with shame. As for Chloe, life hit her even harder. Her college made it official. She was permanently removed for non-payment. No extensions. No appeals. She tried applying to other universities, but the news had already spread. Everyone knew what had happened, and many places refused to accept her due to her sudden academic record change. At home, things were falling apart too. The rent was now due every month with no backup. The fridge stayed half empty. The house that once had internet, cable, and running heat was now filled with silence. Their pride, their arrogance, it all began to crack. Chloe began working part-time jobs, things she once looked down on. Stocking shelves at a grocery store, handing out flyers, answering phones at a dusty little office. The same girl who once mocked me for being boring was now learning how to earn the hard way. And my mother? She tried to act like nothing happened. But everyone around her knew. Old neighbors stopped waving. Women from her prayer circle didn't return her calls. Even her sisters, my aunts, began to distance themselves after what happened in court. And me? I didn't just survive. I grew stronger. I found a new job at a company where I was valued. The boss appreciated my work ethic, and for the first time in years, I had coworkers who treated me with respect. I started saving again, and within a few months, I had enough to buy myself another car, one that no one could touch this time. I started going to the gym, cooking for myself, and reading in peace. My apartment, small and quiet, felt like home. Most importantly, I never felt guilty again. Not for saying no. Not for walking away. And definitely not for putting myself first. Because they didn't just lose their daughter that day. They lost the only person who ever truly cared for them, and they had no one to blame but themselves. A few months passed, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. My bills were in control. My new car was parked safely outside my apartment. I had a steady job with kind coworkers. And most of all, I didn't have to walk on eggshells anymore. No yelling. No guilt. No more pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. Then one afternoon, I got an unexpected knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and froze. It was Chloe. She looked different, tired, thinner, and clearly not dressed in the expensive outfits she used to wear. She was holding a small paper bag and had a nervous look on her face. I opened the door just enough to speak. "What do you want, Chloe?" She looked down, then back up. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I didn't answer right away." She continued, "I messed up. I thought everything would always be easy. I thought you'd keep paying forever. I didn't realize how much you were doing until it all stopped." I crossed my arms and leaned on the door. "And now what? You want me to come back? Pay for things again?" "No," she said quickly. "I'm not here to ask for money. I've been working at a call center. I'm trying to fix things. But it's hard.
People still talk about me.
I just needed to say I was wrong." Her voice cracked near the end, and for a moment, I saw something real in her eyes. But I stayed calm. "You didn't just make a mistake, Chloe," I said. "You laughed when they sold my car. You stood by when Mom told me to leave. You knew I was the only one keeping that house together, and you used me anyway." She nodded slowly. "I know. That's why I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say it." There was a long pause. "Thanks for coming," I said softly. "But I think it's better if we don't stay in touch for now. I'm still healing." She gave a small nod, turned around and walked away. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing deeply. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt done. Sometimes, closure doesn't come with hugs or happy endings. Sometimes, it's just a quiet knock and the strength to say no. 2 weeks after Chloe showed up at my door, something else happened, something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. I got a call from one of my mother's older cousins, Aunt Diane. She lived in another city and had always stayed neutral in family matters. She called to say, "Emma, I don't want to bother you, but your mom showed up at my place last night crying." I was quiet.
I didn't know what to say.
She looked exhausted. Aunt Diane continued. She said Chloe's barely earning enough, and they're behind on everything. They lost gas and heating, and now their landlord is threatening to evict them. She asked if I could contact you. I sighed. "And what did you tell her?" I told her she made her choices. And that maybe, just maybe, she should apologize to the daughter who paid her bills for 5 years. I thanked Aunt Diane and hung up. That night, I sat quietly in my apartment, remembering everything, how my mother once looked me in the eye and said, "If you don't like it, leave." How she watched Chloe throw tantrums while I broke my back trying to keep the home together. And now, she was living the consequences of her own words. A few days later, a letter arrived. No envelope, just folded paper, hand-delivered by someone I don't know who. It was from my mother.
"Emma,
I know I don't deserve your time. I was blind. I thought I was helping Chloe by letting her get what she wanted, but I failed both of you. I let jealousy and pride get in the way. I lost your trust, your love, and now I've lost everything. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking you to keep living a good life. You earned it.
I'm sorry.
I hope one day you can forgive me."
Mom.
I sat with that letter in my hands for a long time. But I didn't cry. I didn't feel hate. Just a quiet kind of sadness. Because I had already forgiven her in my heart. Not for her sake, but for mine. I needed to let go of the pain to move forward. But that didn't mean I would let her back in. Some wounds heal. But some doors, once closed, stay closed. And I was finally at peace with that. Spring came early that year. The air felt fresh, and so did my life. It had been almost a year since I left that house, and the distance gave me something I never thought I needed so badly: clarity. Without the noise, the blame, the guilt, and the emotional weight, I finally had the space to ask myself, who am I when I'm not carrying everyone else's load? Turns out, I'm someone who loves quiet mornings with tea. I enjoy grocery shopping without worrying if someone else ate all the food I paid for. I smile when I check my bank account, not because it's overflowing, but because for the first time, it's mine. I even started taking weekend classes to learn something I'd always pushed aside: interior design. I never told anyone, but I've always had a talent for creating warm, welcoming spaces. In my apartment, I painted the walls soft colors, added plants, built shelves, and hung up art that made me feel calm. One day during class, my teacher pulled me aside. "Emma, have you ever thought about doing this professionally? You have a natural gift." Her words hit me deep. No one had ever said that to me before, not about something I loved. I smiled and nodded. Maybe it's time I did. By the end of that season, I was helping my classmates with their design projects. I even got a small freelance job decorating an elderly couple's guest room. They were so grateful. They gave me a bonus. And for the first time in my adult life, I realized something huge. I was building a life that wasn't about survival. It was about joy. Chloe and my mother? I heard they had moved in with one of my mother's distant cousins. They were surviving. That's all I needed to know. I didn't block them, but I didn't reach out either. I had no hate in my heart. But I had no space left for people who only loved me when I was useful. 1 year to the day I left that house, I stood outside my apartment on a quiet morning, keys in hand, coffee in the other, and realized I was truly happy. Not the fake kind where you smile for others while your chest feels heavy. This was real peace. Quiet. Simple.
Mine.
So much had changed, yet the world kept spinning like it always had. My life was no longer wrapped around unpaid bills, slammed doors, or silent tears. I no longer begged for respect or tried to earn love with sacrifices. I no longer needed to. That day, I visited a small property just outside the city. Nothing fancy, just a little fixer-upper with big windows and a garden out back. The agent showed me around, and I could already picture it. Soft curtains, wooden bookshelves, warm light at night, and a quiet bench in the garden to sit and read. My place. My peace. I signed the papers the following week. That house became more than a home. It became the symbol of everything I had fought for. A few months later, I received one final letter. This time it was from Chloe, handwritten like the last one from Mom. It was short. "Emma, I just wanted to let you know I've started college again, on my own this time. I'm working part-time and paying as I go.
You don't have to reply.
I just wanted you to know I'm trying. Chloe." I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just sat in silence for a while. I didn't know if we'd ever talk again. Maybe someday. Maybe not. But I wasn't waiting for it. Because in the end, the greatest lesson I learned was this: family isn't just who you're born to. It's who chooses you, who respects you, and, most importantly, who never asks you to destroy yourself just to keep them happy. I had finally chosen myself, and that made all the difference.